Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vishnupad Paramhans Parivrajaka Stotra Shat His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Virandi Gosai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. I thank all of you for joining us on this Sunday feast. We will keep short and crisp because I know it's almost time for lunch. So the topic I was thinking to do today is, of course, all these topics here is inspired by our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So I was thinking we'll talk about something about mind power. And I would like to keep this very interactive. So before we get started, I would like to know how many of you are here for the first time Sunday program or any of these con programs. Thank you so much. What's your name, sir? Damodar Das. Well, your name sounds like you've been here for a long time. Thank you for joining us. Anybody else here for the first time? First time on Sunday feast. Thank you for joining us. This is your family? Oh, birthday. Very nice to be here on birthdays or any given day. But thank you so much for joining us. So, mind power. My name is Srinivasa. You can call me Srini, whatever works. Srinivasa. I did my graduation from India. I was qualified in IIT. I don't know if you heard about IIT, but I was from IIT. And then right now I'm working in corporate world, whatever, in terms of in capacity of director of IT off services. But this is where I love doing my job. This is my main job. That's just for my living. Anyways, so mind power. Let's look at what mind. So if you can see here, I'm having technical difficulties with this operating. My laptop is cooperating, but okay, I see. Okay, now I'm getting it. Okay. Mind. The dictionary definition of mind is it's is that which thinks, imagines, remembers, wills and senses, and is a set of faculties responsible for such phenomena. The mind is also associated with experiences, experiencing perception, pleasure, pain, belief, so on and so forth. This is dictionary definition, we all know this. But the question is, even though the mind exists, can you see the mind? The question, I'm asking question, can you see the mind? No, right? Can you touch the mind? No, you cannot touch it. It's so subtle. But you can feel the mind, right? Can you not feel the mind? Yes. And we also perceive that the mind exists. So it is very interesting, even though we cannot see the mind, we cannot touch the mind, but we can realize the mind, right? So there is something mind called mind is existing, right? It's very subtle. So we commonly agree that mind exists and it functions, as we saw in the definition, it responds to pain, pleasures, happiness, whatever. So mind exists, we all agree that. Again, so because mind exists, we cannot really in a very gross manner perceive it, but it exists, so it's very subtle. The question is how powerful the mind is and what role does it play in our daily life, and we'll see some of the examples, right? But before we get there, why this topic of mind is very popular, right? If you look at many of the talks in TED, or if you just go search modern science, there's a lot of research happens on mind, the way it responds and all that, right? And if you just Google on Amazon or any of the e-commerce portals, you will see there's so much content and knowledge available on mind, discussing on how we can engage the mind. And there are topics like how we can design the mind. Looks like we can actually design the mind in a certain way where we can actually, kind of mold it and so on and so forth. Anyways, so the point is people engage their mind productively, right? Doing their studies, science, research, laboratories. They also use mind for yoga, meditation, reading, because if mind is not there, all this will not function. So these are some of the ways where we can engage the mind productively. But if the mind is not engaged in a productive way, the only option is destructive way, because it's digital, it's either 0 or 1, right? There's nothing in between. And if it is done in this way, then it causes a lot of disturbance, instability in society, state, nation, and there's so much to talk about, people who are, cause disturbance, right? And I'm not deliberately going there because that's not our topic. But the point is, mind is very powerful, that even subconscious mind is something which we can, like when we are sleeping, we dream of, like we are maybe in a whatever jungle. If it is a horrific dream, maybe a tiger is chasing me, or maybe I'm getting drowned in the ocean. And sometimes you have a very joyful dream that you are eating very nice feast. So even though your gross body is kind of not moving at all, but your mind is taking you to a totally different place, which has kind of no connection to where you are in your current situation, which is very interesting, because the mind can take you and your thoughts, impressions to miles and miles away in a second. That's how powerful the mind is. Do we agree? The mind is powerful? Yes? Right? Thank you. So, from a scriptural view, right, Bhagavad Gita, which is our basis of our scriptures and based on which this entire society functions, is also very much focused on mind. In a sense, Krishna who is the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is the listener, Krishna emphasizes this point of mind and engaging the mind and the consequences of not engaging the mind properly, elaborately, in many chapters, including chapter 6, which is Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana means meditation, meditate, right? So there, Krishna makes a lot of statements, right? For example, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind, which means that with the help of your mind, you can deliver yourself from whatever situation you are, right? But if you're not able to control the mind, then the mind will control you, and you will then become controlled by mind, and then you will go where the mind wants you to go, not where you want to go. So the point is, mind and you are two different things, right? So what somebody thinks, because we have different kind of conceptions, people have notions. Some people think we are our mind, but our scripture says we are different than our mind, and we'll look at that in a bit. And Krishna also says that one who has conquered the mind, he's now quite enlightened. He's reached a stage where he can see the super soul. So he's a quite elevated personality and all that. And then he goes on to say that a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live in a secluded place, so on and so forth. And there are so many statements like this. And here he is talking about, how to engage the mind productively, right? Because if it is not, then the repercussions are, as you see, if the mind is not engaged properly, then it will lead to activities which we should not be doing. And when we do those activities, what happens? We get karma. And then that karma defines our rest of our lifetimes, right? Have you heard about karma? I'm sure most of us have heard about karma, right? Good karma, bad karma. Thank you. So when we act in the state of, which is actually called ignorant stage, we end up accruing karma, which we do not want karma, bad karma, through which we ends up getting bad situations, reactions, disease and all that. Anyways, however, the last line in this PPT on this slide is kind of pivotal, and this is where I'm going to navigate all of us in the next phase of discussions for next maybe 15-20 minutes. So this statement is very pivotal and very important. Krishna in the 8th chapter, he says, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, which is Arjuna, who is Arjuna, that state he will attain without fail. So which means at the end of this life, when let's say me, as an example, the state of mind I am in at the end of my life, when I'm going to quit my body, that state I'm going to attain in my next life. So just to elaborate this point a little bit more, very famous example. Any guesses who this personality is? Bharat Maharaj, very great devotee. In Srimad Bhagavatam, he is glorified as one of the best of the personalities who did his devotional service, exalted devotee. But in his highest stage, unfortunately, he got in contact with a deer. And this deer was, the context was, there was a female deer who was carrying, and that female deer was being chased by a tiger, I guess, or was it lion? And because of that horrific situation, she had a, miscarriage. And then the baby deer came out, which was untimely. And then that mother deer had to run away, or she was eaten, whatever. But the point is, this small baby deer had nobody else to take care of, which is a very compassionate situation where somebody is very human, he will be compassionate. So Bharat Maharaj, being so compassionate, he started taking care of that deer to that extent that he became so engaged in taking care of the deer that in some time he totally forgot about his we can say, prescribed duties of being a yogi or being a, devotee. And what happens is, towards the end of his life, because he was so engaged, his mind was so absorbed in the thoughts of the deer, guess what happened? He became a deer in the next life. Is this not like phenomenal? The mind creates your next body. It is not just by chance that somebody gets a human body. It is a process of evolution. Of course, this is not Darwin's evolution process. I'm keeping that aside. But from a scriptural point of view, there is a process of evolution. However, in this whole process of evolution, mind plays a very important role. So whatever state our mind is absorbed in, we are going to attain that stage without fail. Krishna says, look at this point. He says he will attain without fail, which means there is no doubt that this is a true statement. And this statement is made by Krishna himself, so it's got to be true. And scriptures also prove that. Now I'm going to present a different angle to this. Keep aside the scriptural evidence which you just spoke about. This is a scientific outcome, right? This is scientific view. No relation to Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. This is just scientific experiments. So there was a scientist called Ian Stevenson. I don't know how many of you have heard about this guy. Anybody heard about this guy? Ian Stevenson, very popular scientist. We have Kirchor Gopinath Prabhu. He passed away maybe a decade back. Very popular scientist. So he had encounters with children who had very crazy memories. Like they will be like 2 years old, but they will talk about all those things which are totally irrelevant to this particular lifetime of that baby. He will talk about how he went through some traumatic experience in his life, and he was shot by a gun and all that. And there were numerous researches and case studies which he did. So overall, this scientist did over 2,000 cases, research on 2,000 cases of these kids, children, use cases. And he used to interview them, talk to their parents, and then investigate further. Now, the conclusion of what he made was, he said, this is his own words, and you can look at this in the website called neardeath.com, and you can look at /Ian Stevenson. So there he says, any rational person can believe in reincarnation in the basis of evidence which he collected. And I'm going to just throw some examples here. So there was a guy in India, he's a small boy obviously, right? And when he was born, on his chest there was a very kind of an odd, weird birthmark, which is very different. A normal birthmark like a mole or something is like, this is quite natural, but this was quite different. And this child also had memories of previous life, that he used to always tell that I was shot in my chest, right? And there was not just one but multiple shots. And he used to talk about many other memories of the previous life, which his parents were not able to relate to what's going on. So somehow the scientists came to know about that. He flew down there. This was actually in India, I guess. And he investigated obviously, and he went to a point where he saw the autopsy report of the person which this boy is talking about, because the police had the papers and all that of those of this incident. So there on the right hand side, if you see, this guy had, or the previous lifetime body, he was shot multiple times on his chest, but there was a major shot on the center, and that impression carried on to his next life, which actually manifested as one of those birthmarks. And this is not the only case. There was another child, was born with no fingers on the right hand. No fingers, and scientists had or the doctors had no clue what's going on. We have never seen such cases. But this guy, this small boy, he had this memory of his fingers getting chopped by a fodder chopping machine when he was playing in the farm. This is again back in Asia maybe. And then when they found out the person who he was talking about in his, memories and his recalls, there actually happened a case where, where somebody lost his life because of this accident, and his hand was cut. And he could relate, okay, this is something which is very related. Another case, this has happened in Turkey, where one boy was born with a very malformed ear, very, very crazy. And then he would talk about how a gunshot, he had a gunshot very close to his face and it pierced his ears and all that. And when he found out, this was actually because in the previous life he went through that experience. So the point I'm trying to make is, the experiences which our mind has, that impression gets carried into our next life. So we should be very careful of understanding, one, that the mind is very powerful, and the impressions it carries really makes a large impact in this life and also next life. Of course, some people and scientists may say there is no reincarnation, there is no birth, this is life, is it, that's all. Once this body is gone, everything is finished. But of course, for them, we cannot really convince them. But because we are here, you are all, have some faith, and that's why we are here to discuss about this topic of reincarnation. Anyways, we also see in cases of, when this is called metamorphosis, right? Many of you would have heard this, how from an egg it becomes a kind of a caterpillar kind of a thing, larva. From there it transforms ultimately into a butterfly. So when it comes into the form of a larva, it actually stops eating, stops drinking, and it just stays still, nothing doing. It does not do anything. And it has been found on the studies, it is still alive, the mind is working, which means the mind is actually absorbed in something. What is that mind absorbed in? The mind is absorbed in actually the form of the butterfly. That ultimately, from this form of a caterpillar, I want to have butterfly because I want to fly. I want to have more freedom. This is again in an insect kingdom. And there are so many things which we can talk about in terms of how the mind plays a very major role in defining our life, in defining our the next future, right? And of course, this is Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Bhagavad Gita says that we are not this body, we are a spirit soul, and the soul goes through transformation, and the ultimate transformation happens when we quit the body. It transmigrates from that body to another body. So if you see this picture, you have this on the left hand side, the body becomes old, and then ultimately it just vanishes, and then it goes on to the next body, gets another body of a child, and it just keeps on going. And what's interesting is, in the center you will have a sign. Do you see a sign, a symbol? What does that denote? Infinity, infinite. What does infinity means? No end. What does it mean? So this life of this transmigration is endless, from one body to another body, to another, to another, to another. It just keeps on going. There is no end to it. Of course, we'll come to that in a moment. What's your name? Smriti is saying if you attain moksha, then we have a solution. I'm going to come to that point in a minute. So, the problem is endless life cycles of life, death, and in between life and death we have miseries, we have diseases, so on and so forth. Now, scriptures gives us the definition of the problem. Scriptures has now defined the problem, right? But thankfully, scriptures also give us the solution to this. Scriptures also gives a solution to this problem. So the first solution the scripture gives is Jnana Yoga. Smriti just spoke about moksha. Moksha means you're actually practicing Jnana Yoga, wherein Jnana means knowledge, and you're trying to cultivate a knowledge of separating yourself from this material world or from this material conception of life and focusing only on the soul, Atma. So they practice a lot of austerity, they detach themselves from society, from this, we can say, world, and they seclude themselves in a solitary place, maybe in a jungle or a forest or whatever. So that's one of the process, Jnana Yoga, through which we can attain moksha. Moksha is merging into Brahman is moksha. You get moksha and then you get rid of the problems of repeated birth and death. Fine, that's one of the solution. There's another process, Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga, as you can see in this picture, this yogi probably sitting in Himalayas, he's levitating himself from the ground. He's actually not sitting on the ground because of this power of yogic powers. He's actually flying in the air practically. This is called Ashtanga Yoga, and one can practice that also. And ultimate goal is moksha. You get Brahman, you get rid of this material body, material karma, no disease, no birth, just go and merge in Brahman, have moksha. However, this statement is very important for us to understand. Even though these processes of jnana and yoga, I'm not even talking about karma yoga, because karma yoga will give you repeated birth and death, so there is no point of talking about karma yogas. Karma yoga basically means you worship devatas, you please them, which are demigods, and reach heavenly planet, stay there for maybe thousands of years, but then ultimately you need to come back again in this material world, as Krishna says, Shine Punye Martya Lokam Vishanti. After your pious credits is over, you need to come down. In fact, it is said you get kicked out of that place immediately. So karma yoga I'm not even talking about. So jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga are good, authorized, but it's a very, very difficult process to do, practice in this age. Because come to think of it, if you have to detach yourself, are we saying you leave your family, you leave your job, you leave all your responsibilities and then renounce everything and go? Fine, if somebody is qualified, please do, but it's very difficult to do that, right? And even if one becomes qualified to do that, it becomes, Krishna says, it is a very, very difficult process to attain me, klesha adhikataras tesam, so on and so forth. It is very, very difficult for this process, because in this life, because for Ashtanga Yoga and Jnana Yoga, your mind has to be completely controlled. It has to be like totally fixed. If your mind gets deviated even for a second, it's like a failure. How many of us can control our mind totally? At least I cannot. Is there anybody here who can say, I am completely in control of my mind? It's so difficult. Let us be honest. And thank you for your acknowledgement. So this is very difficult. It is because it's beyond. Even Arjuna, being such a high caliber personality, he said, I cannot do dhyana yoga. Forget about it. It is impossible for me to control the mind. I can control the wind, but I cannot control the mind. He says that in 6th chapter, 30th verse. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, pramati balavad dridam, so on and so forth. So, if everybody agrees this is difficult, then what is the solution we have? Because this is a very, maybe difficult, miserable situation. The solution given by scriptures is do bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is actually the most easiest process in this age. However, the result obtained by bhakti yoga is quickest and highest, which cannot be attained in jnana and ashtanga can be attained only in bhakti. I'll just talk about that a little bit more for a few minutes, and then we'll close and open the floor for any comments, reflections, questions. Bhakti yoga. Bhakti means devotion. Yoga means to connect you. But connect to who? Connect to the Supreme Lord. Because the whole philosophy of Bhakti yoga is there is Bhagavan, which is Supreme Lord. He exists, and Jiva, which means the soul exists, and cultivate the relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is Sambandha, which is the relationship. And that cultivation of relationship with the Supreme Lord is Bhakti Yoga. But the point is, what is we need to do in Bhakti Yoga? Because Bhakti Yoga is again an ocean. You can do deity worship, you can reside in a holy place, you can do many, many things. But very fortunately, this process also has been made super simple in this age. And the architect of the process is Krishna himself. Krishna came in the form of Sriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he introduced this process of Harinam Sankirtan. Harinam means, Hari means the Supreme Lord, Nam means the name of the Supreme Lord, and Sankirtan means singing the name of the Lord in congregation or in group. And that process gives the highest result. What is the highest result? They attain Krishna Prema, or the Prema for the Supreme Lord. And once they attain Prema, which is the love, full manifestation of love for the Supreme Lord, they become qualified to actually enter into the spiritual world and get rid of these problems of repeated birth, death, old age disease and all that. Because if you just come to think of it, it is just chanting Hare Krishna. That's all. Of course, it does not end here. There are other processes also engaged there. But this is the core process. Prabhupada says 99.99% of the contribution comes only from chanting Krishna's name. Hare Krishna. And that's what Mahaprabhu has made this process of chanting Krishna's name very, very easy. And that is what we were just doing before. When we did the Arati, what we did? We chanted Hare Krishna. So please say together, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The point somebody may ask is, why is this process so powerful? Because it looks very simple. Anybody can chant, and it's open to all. There is no qualification required that you need to be an Indian, you need to be American, you need to be whatever. No qualification. The only qualification required is to have faith that this holy name is the best of all the process. If we start with that faith, then we are qualified to continue in this process. And as I said, the outcome is prema, which means the love for the Supreme Lord. When that happens, you get rid of this material body which is temporary and miserable. And not only that, which is in moksha, you get rid of this material body, that's all. But in prema, you get a completely spiritual body which is eternal, all knowledgeable, all blissful, and completely, you can say, free from all the problems. And this gives you highest bliss. And that's the process, Hare Krishna. And because the process is, I'll just take one more minute. The process is powerful because the name of Krishna is very powerful. Our scripture says the name of Krishna is non-different than the Supreme Lord himself. The moment you chant Krishna's name, you are eligible to receive all the powers, and through that power and mercy, you transcend through all these problems of life. So I request all of you all to take up this process of chanting Hare Krishna. And if any of you is interested more to know more about this process, I would request you to contact Kirchor Gopinath Prabhu. He is very expert in engaging, people, new people like me, and also here we have Nicholas and Omkar. They have been with him for few months, and how blissful it is to be in this process, right? Maybe you can give a mic, maybe they can talk for a few seconds. How blissful they are, you know. So, if you want a copy of Bhagavad Gita, please feel free to take from his hand. You know, we have copies of Bhagavad Gita. I'm also available. We can discuss. We can also discuss post this, class. We can discuss over lunch more about this. But I'll now open the floor for questions, any reflections, comments, and then we'll break for prasadam. Any reflections? Yes, Prabhu. Mike?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the really nice presentation. I think everyone appreciated it by the fact that everyone's still here. Yeah, we can give a round of applause for Prabhu. A concern I get from people often, and I try to address it the best way I can, but I'd like to hear how you would address this, is that they're afraid to try any sort of spiritual practice. They think they don't want to take any risk. They think, well, I don't want to start something if I don't know it's guaranteed. I don't want to begin any sort of spiritual practice if I can't, prove its absolute guarantee. So how do you explain to someone how Bhakti Yoga is practiced, how one knows or comes to know of its guarantee? You can say something.
So the question is, how can we convince somebody guarantee of success in Bhakti Yoga? So we can take an analogy, right? When a small child, like yesterday we were visiting Seattle, we just came back last night, 11ish, and when we hit the airport, we were just, transiting. My daughter was kind of scared to get down the escalator. This takes you down, and she was like scared. And I told her, look at the people who are doing it. They get on it, and they're landing it. Have faith that this process is working. When you see people practicing it and successfully executing it, you get confidence. So the one of the ways of convincing them, and of course convince also means that they need to put a little bit of faith in the process. But if somebody has a faith, then just by observing people who are practicing bhakti and seeing that they are feeling successful in terms of getting that bliss from performing it, and also able to perform it with a nice balance between professional life and personal life, when they see a real-time example, like even you, when they see you that you're so fixed in doing, and when they see devotees so fixed in doing, which means that there is something there. And when they see real-time examples, they will get convinced ultimately. As I said yesterday, last night, when my daughter saw that people are actually using the escalator and there is no risk involved. Of course, there is some risk involved, obviously, because one may fall down or whatever, but which happens also in bhakti. But if you actually hold on to the rails, then your safety is almost secured. Similarly, in process of bhakti, you need to hold on to devotees. Don't sway or just get swayed or disarray to some other direction, some other philosophy. If you hold on to the principles as explained by our dear founder Acharya, then we are secured. Once he was giving an example that if a ship is rocked by storms and if it is in the middle of the ocean, one may get scared of it, right? And they may think, let me jump out of the ship because now it may sink. But if we have the faith on the captain of the ship, that my captain is a very expert person, he will navigate through this, whatever storms it comes. Just hold on to that hold on to the ship. Even if you are in the restroom or toilet or in the kitchen or a first class, the moment it reaches the shore, what will the captain announce? We have landed. And the moment you have landed, you are successful. You have crossed the ocean of this material world. So we have to have faith. At the same time, we have to hold on to the principles which has been laid down by our scriptures. And if we have the right devotee association, then you are secured. The success is guaranteed. Unlike in case of Bharat Maharaj, he had no association at that point of time. He was just by himself. And that was one of his reasons why he fell down. But if you are in the right association of devotees, then success is guaranteed. Period. Thank you, Prabhu, for asking the question. So, yes, Mataji. Mike.
So, in general, all of us, we forget our past lives. In general, 99.9999.
Yeah.
Only very, very few remember that.
Yeah.
So, the reason, what is the reason only a very few people remember, not everybody? Because Krishna wants us to forget the previous lives. So, that's why. But in some cases, he lets them still have the memory of their previous lives.
Yeah.
So is it because the impressions are so strong, that's why they remember, or is there any other reason for that?
Very nice question. Of course, if we kind of have this capacity to remember our experiences and impressions from previous life and previous lives and lives, imagine it will be so difficult for us to function. We cannot just function because we will always be living in our past. So by the mercy of Krishna, he kind of erases it. And thankfully, then we can operate in our current life. But in some cases, the memories or the impressions are so strong that exceptional cases, they get this recalls of previous lives and all that. I do not know of the reason why it happens, only exceptionally to them, but as we see, because of experiment, it happens for some reason. I've not actually heard or read somewhere why it happens, but it happens.
I mean, he has allowed this to happen.
Oh, of course, it is Krishna's. It is
So
Krishna's.
why in those cases he has allowed in others?
Of course, it is Krishna's approval that it happens. But why it happens, I've never read that. So, but it happens. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why we have sometimes in dreams, we get some weird dreams, and Prabhupada says it is all from your previous life. So all this mind is connecting with whatever impressions you're carrying. And we don't make a sense of it, but it comes in our dreams. So anyways, I wanted to summarize that mind is very powerful sense which we have. It is very subtle. It's very powerful. Even though it is very subtle, it's very powerful, and if it is engaged properly and productively, it can yield amazing, astonishing result. And the best engagement of the mind is to get the mind absorbed in the Supreme Lord or in bhakti process, and by that the outcome attained is the highest, which is not available in any of the other processes. And hence that's the request of Srila Prabhupada to practice bhakti yoga. For one and all, it's open for all, and the easiest of all the processes is chanting Krishna's name. And it's not just Krishna, it is Hare Krishna, it is Radha and Krishna. So one gets absorbed in serving Radha and Krishna, mind gets absorbed, then you attain them, and once you attain, you serve them personally. So with that, if there are no more questions and comments, reflections, I would like to close the session. And I invite, okay, there is one.
Thank you so much for this beautiful class. So my question is deja vu. When you have deja vu and it doesn't happen for a few years, but then years pass by and again you have deja vu, would you consider that part of a previous life? Because that's what we think.
It may be, I can talk about my own example. When I was in the college, university, I used to have a lot of deja vu, or which is also called premonition experiences, that I would feel that yes, I know this is going to happen. It happened to me a lot of times, many times. But the fact is, the moment I started chanting Hare Krishna, it has gone away. Completely shut, period, stopped. Nothing is happening now. And even before that, I used to have a lot of traumatic dreams and all that. But with the chanting of Hare Krishna, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the mirror of your mind becomes clear. And that's the power of chanting Krishna's name. So, it may be related to previous life, I think so, but the solution is there. Chant Krishna's name, easiest of all the processes.
How about the dreams? What are they called? Not the lucid dreams, the dreams that you feel like you have to wake up because you wake up in your dream. Is that from a previous life as well?
I don't know, but it happens. It happens to me also.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, it happens. But I think the more the mind gets absorbed, we can get rid of all these problems. All right? Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.